1045, the team, your home for New York Yankees baseball. We are joined by the man who covers the Miami Marlins for the Miami Herald, Andre Fernandez. Andre, I was wondering, did you get a chance to see the way the Yankees sent A-Rod off, and if so, was it appropriate?
Yeah, I got to see some of it. I was working that night, but I saw pieces of it. I mean, it was good to see him at least get the double and kind of get a hit and sort of get that kind of like a rousing ovation from the crowd and that sort of thing. I mean, it's kind of regrettable what happened over the course of the year, that he's just hasn't really been able to play much. But I mean, I thought at least in that one moment to get him at third base one last time, give him an inning there, that was pretty good to give somewhat of a send off, at least to honor what he's done for them.
It's been talked about, and members of the Marlins have acknowledged that they've spoke to A-Rod. Do you think he's going to become a member of the Marlins and play the remainder of the season there in Miami?
I mean, it's kind of on the fence right now because the team, I think the interest is growing just because, now with Stanton out for the remainder of the regular season, they're looking for any kind of option to help that lineup right now. But the problem is going to be where he fit. Obviously, without the DH,
right,
he's got to play the field, and the only really available spot they have right now is first base, something that, a spot that A-Rod really, I think he's only played like one game in his career at first base. And, no one even remembers really when that happened. And, it's just right now what they're missing is just a lot of power in that lineup. Justin Bour is the first baseman that's been out since the beginning of July. He's been on the DL.
Right.
So, I mean, really the problem is just placement because obviously you can't put him in the outfield where you're missing Stanton now. So where do you put A-Rod to have him contribute if he can?
Andre Fernandez joining us. He covers the Marlins for the Miami Herald. So let's say they figure out he can play first, or they just want him to pinch hit. Whatever logistics, they figure that out. He's a really controversial player. Do you think the Miami fans would embrace him?
I think the Miami fans would, because I think it would kind of become an event, which I don't know if that would be a distraction for the team itself. I mean, it's been a pretty close group all year. And, they've kind of thrived just together, the group that they have with Ichiro and everything that went on with him. And, as far as the fans, though, I think they probably would come out and turn out for the spectacle, being that, A-Rod's a hometown guy, Westminster Christian and all that. I think, it's definitely created some excitement locally these last few days, hearing that, there's a possibility he could, decide to come here, even if it's for a month and a half, and maybe, retire as a Marlin.
The Marlins are in contention, and does it make sense to you to put a guy who's had probably his worst year in a very long time, batting under 200, in the lineup, especially considering he'd have to play the field and certainly first base? He's never played that position before. How likely is it?
I mean that's the issue right there. I think right now you wonder how much he actually can contribute. I mean, obviously it would create, like I said, it would create a lot of a big spectacle having him come back home to play here and all that. But just from the standpoint of production and keeping this team alive right now in the wild card race, you don't really see that, at least not from what he did this year. Is he the A-Rod of old? We don't know. He seems to be on the decline. He's not even being able to really play the field all year. Do you want to have that, or do you want to go after maybe a guy like a Carlos Gomez, let's say? That's another name that's been mentioned a lot because he can play in the outfield. He's 2 years removed, I think, from a pretty good season. Do you want to take a better chance, on a guy like that? There's not a lot of options out there right now. Obviously, A-Rod is the attractive story, but you kind of hesitate when you see, obviously the fit isn't a natural fit for him where they'd have to put him, and, can he produce?
Andre Fernandez of the Miami Herald on 1045 The Team with Levack and Wolf. So, all right, it's just the chaos fan in me, Andre, but I'm imagining a dugout with Don Mattingly, Barry Bonds, and Alex Rodriguez. Can you just take a second and tell me how you think that would work?
Well, that's a tremendous picture for starters. I mean, anybody would love to get a selfie with any of the, or you take just a portrait of those three guys sitting in the dugout. But again, it's kind of just, the spectacle of that. I mean, that would be Barry Bonds. At the beginning, people had questions whether that would work out with him coaching. How would that role play itself out? It's been a positive thing for throughout the season. It's had a good impact on players like Marcell Ozuna this year. Has improved. Don Mattingly's done a good job steadying that team and turning them around from what they, just the train wreck that they became halfway through the season last year. And, I don't know if adding A-Rod into that element, if it really on the field would produce any significant results right now. But yeah, that's a lot of home runs. It's a lot of history right there to have those three guys together in the same dugout. It would be a tremendous sight to see, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I know it would put fans in the seats, but would this be a situation where he'd be a player and then somehow work his way into coaching?
Well, I mean, the Yankees, I know they've said that they want to bring him in as kind of an instructor, possibly for next season. So, I mean, I could see him, from A-Rod's perspective, I think he probably would be willing, possibly, to take that chance and finish at home, go, spend this last month and a half and just be there and end his career. Like, I'd try to end his career on on a high note as far as performance, and then transition into coaching the same way Barry Bonds and other guys have. I mean, from his perspective, I could see the enticement to possibly do that.
The advisor role, a lot of us up here in Yankee territory felt that was sort of something just created for him because they wanted to make the transition of him leaving a little bit more palatable. I would think, I mean, it's much more likely that he would have a role with the Marlins. I mean, his family lives there. He has a house in Coconut Grove. So I'm not sure the advisor role that they offered him was really a serious offer. From your perspective, which way do you think A-Rod would be leaning?
I mean, if you're saying if he would do something similar in the future, like down here for Miami,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey Loria is a big fan of his. I mean, I know he likes him, so I mean, that's something. Yeah, I mean, I could see them possibly. I mean, they offered it to Barry Bonds, and we've seen that work out so far. So far so good this season. So in the future, if that were a prospect that both sides would be interested in, they could potentially work something out.
Andre Fernandez of the Miami Herald with us. Doesn't sound like you're officially sold on him being a Miami Marlin. Are you guys hearing any other rumblings down there of any other teams that might be interested, whether it be Tampa Bay or anywhere else?
I mean, we've briefly heard the Rays mentioned, but I think the Marlins are the primary team just because, since he'd be able to come home, that's the one that everybody, it's just kind of, all over the country now. Everybody's kind of waiting to see would the Marlins jump on this and get him. So, I mean, it's kind of, we're all sort of at the beginning we thought maybe it's a wild idea, but now as the injuries have piled up for the Marlins, yesterday with Stanton going on the DL, now he's, the only way he'd be back possibly, and that's a long shot, would be if they make the playoffs. But to get there first, they need all the help they can get. So now, interest has been risen a little bit within the organization now. So we're all kind of in wait and see mode and see if this thing would actually happen.
Andre Fernandez of the Miami Herald, he covers the Marlins. Please don't take this the wrong way, but if it happens, A-Rod's your problem now.
You're dumping him on us now.
I might drive him down if it calls for it.
Oh, there you go.
Andre, thank you so much for your time, man. We appreciate you.
Oh, no problem. Anytime, guys.
Thanks, Andre.
Thanks for having me.